I went to Disneyland Paris for the weekend.
Oh, did you? What was that like?
Made a change from watching Mickey Mouse football at Old Trafford.
I understand why people are a bit upset about it, but I don't see it as being that big of a deal.
Obi Martin was just a star from the beginning. I think Obi Martin is much better technically than Hojlund is.
Manchester United only run well when results on the pitch are going well.
Just seeing something that I can believe in on the pitch.
There's a fine line, isn't there, for any football club about respecting and celebrating your history, but also not living in the past. We've become a bit of a banter club, haven't we? And
Absolutely.
Every other big club in the Premier League, they're rejoicing.
We're sick to death of trying to pick little bits out. You have to win, otherwise sling it up.
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils talkSPORT's Man United show, keeping you up to date with everything coming out of Old Trafford. It might be the international break, but we've still got a jam-packed episode for you. We're going to be talking about the inside lowdown of Manchester United's newest starlet, Cheeto Obi Martin. We're going to be discussing some of the big breaking news emerging from the club as well. And we're going to preview a massive clash at home to Brentford this Saturday. Joining me here is, of course, Alex Crook. And after our own international break in Spain, it's a big warm welcome back to Angelina. Plus, I'm delighted to be joined by Forever United TV host Adam Matic, and a good friend of mine as well. It's great to have him on the show. Adam, full circle moment, mate. Look at this.
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? We met outside Old Trafford and then just both end up in a talkSPORT studio, but
Just by accident, of course, just complete coincidence. Angelina, had your own international break, signing it up in Spain?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I'm
nice.
back, refreshed, nice to have a little bit of a break from Manchester United, I'll be honest. But yeah, no, feeling good now.
Feeling recharged, feeling ready to go. Crookie, yourself, well, I don't think you ever rest, do you, from the insides of football? Yeah.
I went to Disneyland Paris for the weekend.
Oh, did you? What was that like? Getting on any rides?
That wasn't particularly restful, but no, it was great, and it made a change from watching Mickey Mouse football at Old Trafford.
To watching real life Mickey Mouse, yeah, absolutely. Well, first up, let's take a look at the week that was at Old Trafford, Alex. We've got some big news because today there's been breaking news about Sir Alex Ferguson. I don't even want to say being sacked by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Relieved of his ambassadorial duties is the most respectful way to say it about Sir Alex. But the big news about Sir Jim Ratcliffe basically saying that Sir Alex at the end of the season will be stepping away from his ambassadorial duties. Is that a good decision? Or is it a poor decision?
I think maybe it's been handled a little bit clumsily, but I think ultimately the decision is correct. We're told it's amicable on both sides, but you're right, it really has been led by INEOS as part of their wider cost-cutting measures, which I'm told have not been well received by a lot of long-serving staff members. But optically, if you're going to take away packed lunch on a match day for casual staff, it doesn't look great, does it, if you're still paying a former manager more than £2 million a year to effectively sit and wave in the director's box. So I think Sir Alex has made more than enough money since he stopped working in the dugout, stopped becoming a manager. And I think probably the time is right. And actually, does it help the current incumbent of that dugout that you've got Sir Alex, the greatest manager arguably in the club's history, sat behind, shaking his head on TV every time a goal is conceded? Maybe a little bit of distance between someone who is always going to be an iconic figure, always going to be adored by Manchester United fans, and the current United manager who's trying to write his own history. Maybe that's not a bad thing.
Some of the... don't even want to... Feels weird even saying some of the positive reasons why Sir Alex should step away from United. But, quickly articulating well some of the reasons behind it. Could it have been handled better, Ange? Yeah,
I think it could have been handled better. You would think that there would be some kind of press release explaining it, because now this is just open for people to start picking holes in. Whereas I think if it was a lot clearer, then it wouldn't be as, the sacking Alex Ferguson or whatever. For me, it kind of just makes sense. The guy's in his 80s. He's been paid a lot of money. And also, the thing is, it's not like we're never going to see Sir Alex Ferguson again. I'm sure if there was something that they needed him to do, whether it was something for PR or for him to come to a certain game, he's not going to turn around and be like, nah, you're all right. I think we're still going to see him if we need him. So, yeah, I don't really... I understand why people are a bit upset about it, but I don't see it as being that big of a deal. This is... with all due respect, an old man who probably also will welcome the rest, I would assume. I don't think he would have taken it if he really didn't want to. So, yeah, I just think it's one of those. Could have been handled better, but I see why they've done it.
Yeah, Adam, I know you're a man of big opinions. Initial thoughts when you saw that coming?
I've not got a problem with it. at all right now. I think Manchester United fans have got bigger things to worry about. When I heard the initial sort of like wages and what he was actually earning a year, I was thinking straight away, that could easily go back into the football club, that go to the academy level, MUTV as we know. INEOS have cut corners there. There's not as much TV showing the under-21s and under-18 games. So can we reinvest that money back in? I think a lot of United fans will look at it and just say, INEOS are making some big calls. This will be seen as a brutal one, but like Alex has said there, like it could have been handled a bit better. Everything's a circus at United right now, but ultimately, they've made big calls about Ferguson. United fans want to see them still make the biggest call of all, which we've been talking about for weeks now. So I think this will be blown away within a couple of days with the fan base, I feel. And I think it has to be expected now with the way INEOS are running United.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was more on... It was a bit on the emotional side, if I'm honest. When I first thought of it, it didn't sit right with me. Just because, like you said, because it's Sir Alex, and we do, need to step away from this, the old guard, we need to look forward. I get that, we need to save costs as well. Is it not disrespectful that he hasn't got a proper farewell?
Yeah.
Or,
Well,
there isn't a press...
that.
Yeah, exactly. There isn't a proper press release about this. I mean, I've seen some things online, other journalists, Adam Crafton's gone really, really strong on this from The Athletic, sort of saying that some of the wording now being used from other outlets is, that Sir Alex has decided to step away. Well, no, he hasn't decided to step away. He was told by Sir Jim Ratcliffe that we're not continuing with this arrangement that the Glazers put in place almost 13 years ago. So it's very different. I kind of just want INEOS to stand on that. Like, I don't want to... Sir Jim, if you've got to Sir Alex and said, listen, we're going to go in a different direction, stand on that. Don't do the PR spin. Don't say, well, he wants to do... Because, like Angelina said, to be fair, he said, well, maybe he wants the rest. What if he doesn't? What if he's like, actually, I wanted to carry on? You're relieving me of my duties.
Well, he's got 2 million reasons for it to carry on.
Well, yeah.
And listen, an unpopular opinion, and Sir Alex Ferguson is the greatest manager the club has ever had, in my opinion, someone who's had a massive impact on my life as a football fan. But I do wonder, could things have turned out differently if he didn't take that ambassadorial role from the Glazers? And could he have then spoken out about the direction of travel the football club has been on since he stopped as manager? Will he now speak out about what's happened to his football club, the club that he built over the last 10 years or so? So I think that would be fascinating to see if now he's free from the shackles of the Glazers' payroll, if he can actually come out and give an honest opinion about the fact the club have declined so much.
Should he have got a chance to, with everything he's done, Ads, should he have got a chance to decide when he leaves this football club in any capacity that it may be?
No, we're Manchester United are a business. I still believe that he's got this role. He's been paid so much because he papered over so many cracks for the Glazers over the years. He is the only reason that we were winning trophies. It was nothing to do with the Glazer ownership. We hardly spent any money while he was the manager. And of course, this just looks like INEOS making big calls as soon as they're in, which the previous regime didn't make. That's all this is. It's just business. And while everything is bad, it's always going to look worse than what it is, and it's always going to be more of a circus than what it needs to be. It's just a sensible decision. Yes, hopefully he will get some sort of farewell. Hopefully they do like a little programme or a documentary on his time or something like that just to say thank you. I think that's all United fans want to see. They're not really bothered right now. We need to move forward. It's been 10 years since he's been the manager, and there's bigger, important things going on at the football club right now. But like Crookie said then, he's in all our hearts. He basically gave us all our best years as fans. Everyone in here, we've luckily seen them years. I was talking off camera, like my son started going to Old Trafford when Ferguson finished. His first season was David Moyes. The new generation of fans don't know what Ferguson was all about. They look at us talking about it now going, what are they talking about?
Yeah, why is this that important?
It's moved forward now. The club's moved forward, sadly. I don't like to talk this way, but it's just the way that the lay of the land at the moment with United.
There's a fine line, isn't there, for any football club about respecting and celebrating your history, but also not living in the past. And I think United have spent too long living in the past.
And I feel like I've been just too emotional then with this, actually, listening to you guys. Because I do see the financial side of it. I do see we have to move forward. But do you think that most United fans will be sort of, well, yeah, we need to move on and echo what the guys are saying?
Yeah, I think so. I understand having like an initial emotional reaction. Makes sense. But I think it's just one of those things. It's almost like when you look at Arsenal with Arsene Wenger, he's kind of, moved on. There's that separation, but you always know that if there was a situation, I'm sure they would have him back for something and he would be welcomed. We almost need something a little bit like that, almost, where you're still respecting the past, but you're creating a little bit of a division. And I don't think it's going to change that much in that if there's a massive game, if Man United get to another cup final, are you telling me Fergie's not going to be there? Of course he'd still be invited to be there. If it's a big games, I'm sure you'll still see him, pottering around. So I don't...
He's always welcome. He's got the keys, isn't he? So
yeah.
So he's always going to be...
He's welcome to join us on Inside Devils now.
Yeah. Well,
He's not
There
he's
you
not
go.
the club payroll.
Adam, do you think this will put more pressure on INEOS now in terms of Ten Hag? Because I know they're completely different facets, but some people can have the view of, well, you're getting rid of Sir Alex Ferguson before you're even getting rid of, actually, when you talk about the here and now, we're a mess on the pitch and the manager's still here.
There is a lot of pressure on INEOS. From the fan base, they'll just be going along thinking that they're just doing their job. We've had so much happen in such a short space of time with INEOS at the helm. I think we forget how bad it was before. We've been crying out for a structure to be brought into Manchester United. The only thing is, like you've said, it's the Ten Hag factor right now, which is the biggest talking point within the Manchester United fan base. It's the football on the pitch. That's all that matters. Manchester United only run well when results on the pitch are going well. There's many a journalist who said exactly the same thing. The stories will circulate. As soon as United have bad results, these stories will start piling in from everywhere. And it's not nice and not going well on the pitch, stories like the Sir Alex Ferguson one today will get built up into something that they're really not. And you just have to look at what's important. Again, I keep saying it. It's going to be pressure situation because that's everyone gone. I don't know anyone who's left at the football club. There's only one man that's left. And like you said then, the pressure from the fan base in particular now will be when them results carry on, hopefully they don't, but if them results do carry on in the negative form that they are now, then the fans are really going to I think you now need to start making some bigger decisions.
Yeah, I think this definitely does feed into the ruthless nature of Sir Jim Ratcliffe / INEOS. When you're doing your due diligence on their way in cricket and you read about, the decisions that they're not afraid to make. Some people were sort of questioning that ruthlessness in terms of not getting rid of Erik Ten Hag during this international break. And you see a decision like this, which, albeit, okay, fair enough, we can maybe agree that in the grand scheme of things, it will be okay, it's fine. But it does take a lot of cojones from Sir Jim Ratcliffe to get Sir Alex in and look him in the eye and say, listen, we're going to go in a different direction. We're not going to have you in this capacity anymore.
Yeah, this is a massive decision, but some of the other calls they've made do feel a little bit like fiddling while Rome burns, taking away packed lunches for staff, as I've mentioned, not subsidising travel to the FA Cup final, taking away tickets in some cases for the FA Cup final.
Exactly.
It's a drop in the ocean, really, compared to what some underperforming players are earning to sit on the bench week in, week out.
Exactly.
And obviously the big decision is still to be made when it comes to Erik Ten Hag. Obviously, sources at Old Trafford suggest that the board meetings that took place during the international break were pre-planned and not necessarily a reaction to what's been happening on the pitch. But they still had the conversation. They've still decided to carry on as they left off. I'm not convinced that we're going to see any real change. I'm worried about this Brentford game. We're going to preview it in depth later. I'm worried about the trip to Fenerbahce because it's almost written that Jose Mourinho puts another nail in Ten Hag's coffin. And I think sooner or later they are going to have to make that decision to change manager, and they need to get on the same page in terms of who they want, because we're reporting on talkSPORT this morning that Thomas Tuchel is now a serious contender for the England job. Well, if INEOS do want Thomas Tuchel, they might not have time to sit on their hands for much longer.
Angelina, Anthony, players like him, he's on over just 10 and a bit million a year. And you're getting rid of a couple of million, a year for Sir Alex. Can you see why some fans will be like, what Crookie's saying, there's players there who don't deserve to be on the wages that they are. There's players there who need going. If you want to cut costs, you can cut costs from there.
Yeah, of course, but also it's not like a shock for Anthony to be, you know, professional footballers are on a lot of money. You know, Anthony's not the only one. I get that people would be irritated, but let's wait and see. I'm sure we've all got our fingers crossed that Anthony's going to get sold anyway, so maybe we don't have to worry about things like that. But yeah, I could understand people's frustration, of course.
Yeah, OK, well, interesting thoughts. Let us know what you guys are thinking in the comments with this, because, of course, anything to do with Sir Alex Ferguson, stepping away from Manchester United in any capacity is always going to pull on our heartstrings, but we want to know, is it a good business decision? Does it make sense in the long term for this to happen? Or do you disagree with this? Could they have handled this in a completely separate way? Could they have maybe reduced his wages? Could they have looked at a slightly lesser role? We want to hear from you guys now. Now, moving on to other news, it's emerged that this week Harry Maguire could be on the move in January. There's also discussions of triggering a 1 year's extension to keep him at the football club. Crookie, does that look likely that he could be on the move in January, or do you think they should just be looking to extend his contract to get some value in the summer? Should they give him a new contract? Should he stay?
Well, I'd be surprised if he goes in January. You know, when you look at how important he still is. Erik Ten Hag went into a game against Aston Villa that he dared not lose, and he turned to Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans. So I think there is still a role for him at the football club. I think he's still a good character in the dressing room, and those are in short supply at the Theatre of Dreams. In terms of extending the contract, I think that probably would be just to protect his value, and there might be negotiations to be had. They tried that with Raphael Varane. They wanted him to take a pay cut to sign an extension. Thank God that didn't happen. So let's see. But yeah, I'd be surprised if they let him go in January. What's the point in selling Maguire for £5-10 million in January when you still need him in the squad?
Yeah, not with the problems that we've got. And Anthony as well, apparently is... we're hearing could be offloaded. Angelina just touched on it there before we got into the segment. Who are the front runners to be queuing up by the boatload to sign Anthony?
The dog and duck, I'd imagine. I mean, honestly, it's fanciful to suggest that there's going to be a clamour for Anthony. That we were told there was possibly some interest from Turkey in the summer, but he wanted to stay and fight for his place. That was admirable at the time, but I think he realises now that there's no way back really. If you're not being picked by Erik Ten Hag, then if there is going to be a change of manager, you would imagine his days are numbered, but they're not going to get back anywhere near the fee they pay for him. He's on massive money, so the only way they could do it would be a loan deal. Christian Eriksen's an interesting one as well. I've written about that in my notebook on the talkSPORT website today. Obviously, he's become a go-to player for Ten Hag again. I think he started 6 the last 7 games, scored 3 goals, but he's 33 in February. His contract comes to an end in the summer, and my information is that despite his revival, if you like, INEOS are still planning to let him go at the end of the season because he doesn't really fit into the age structure they want at the football club.
Adam, Anthony and Maguire, I'm assuming you're behind them being moved on?
Yes, Anthony as soon as possible. And with Crookie on Maguire, we're getting to that stage again now. We're starting to fear the injury situation come about. There was rumours about Johnny Evans possibly playing at left-back against Brentford this weekend. We're that desperate. I mean, it's ridiculous. We need as many defenders as we got. I know it sounds funny because Harry Maguire is injured at the moment, but I completely understand Harry Maguire's contract extension. It'd be interesting to see if we get the same scenarios we did with Wan-Bissaka and that so-called clause of getting a little bit more compensation because he was signed the same year as Harry Maguire, wasn't he? So it'd be interesting to see if that scenario comes about again, the complications we had with West Ham. But Maguire in the summer, Anthony, I could see maybe going out on loan in January and then maybe
he want to play football, won't he? Yeah.
Please, Ajax, take him back in the summer. We'll take a massive loss, obviously, but again, we go back to what we said at the start. These are not INEOS problems. They're just steps into the mess, and they're just going to cut their cloth according, and they're just going to do business from this summer forward. You said about the wages before. I think there's only one of INEOS' signings that they've made so far in the top 10 earners at the football club. And that's De Ligt, who probably warrants to be somewhere in the middle of that for his experience. But it just shows you how they're trying to work and take United forward. So definitely doing business on their terms with everything. And I think they'll look at the players bit by bit. 17 left in the summer. I can see a similar summer coming up.
Yeah, it's really important that, isn't it? And just because we need INEOS to have that ruthless streak when it comes to players in terms of dismantling the squad, albeit we've built a new one with Erik Ten Hag, which we're looking at now going, don't know about this, but in terms of getting rid of players who haven't cut the mustard, getting rid of players who are on big money, big salaries, big contracts, INEOS need to keep up that because one of the things we did give them praise for in the summer was that, like Adam said, 17 out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think INEOS need to focus on the squad rather than like what Crookie was mentioning, like cutting lunches for people and like sacking tea ladies and stuff like that. I think, focusing on the players is way more important. But yeah, like we discussed, there was... you look at Scott McTominay, a lot of people saying, oh, we shouldn't have got rid of him. They've got to make good business decisions. And as much as, I know we're going to be talking about the Brentford game, that is a Scott McTominay game, if I ever saw one.
Yeah.
And a game that he's played very well in before. But, that's a smart business decision. And I would like that to continue, definitely, because I've said it a couple of times on this show. How many times do we see people they need to cut the cord with and they take too long and it becomes a disaster? So eradicating that issue is massive.
Now, after his move from Arsenal was finalised last month, there's been a lot of talk about 16-year-old Danish starlet Cheeto Obi Martin. He's now started training at Carrington and videos of his finishing are going viral across the internet. So, to get the inside lowdown on United's latest academy start, I'm pleased to welcome Danish football expert Toke Theilade. How are you doing, Toke? Thank you for taking time out to join us. First of all, what age did it start for Cheeto? And when did he start gathering attention in Denmark?
It's a funny story with him because actually he really only started getting a lot of attention in Denmark when he moved to Arsenal. That's 2 years ago. But obviously he's been a huge talent his whole life, basically. He broke through at Copenhagen's academy, FC Copenhagen's academy, the same place where Hojlund got his education, and was very quickly elevated to play with the older kids. It's pretty remarkable since he's born in November, so normally kids born at the end of the year are obviously developing a little bit slower because they're smaller than the kids born at the beginning of the year. But Obi Martin was just a star from the beginning, playing with kids 2 years older than him. And I think the talent has been obvious since he was just a child. So really, it's no surprise to anybody that now he's at United and going towards becoming a great player, hopefully.
You mentioned he followed a similar career path to Rasmus Hojlund. How would you compare the two players at the same age? Who's better?
I think Obi Martin is actually. Obviously, it's tough to say. I think the big difference between him and Hojlund is that Hojlund made it all the way to Copenhagen's first team, and then he was actually sent to Austria because he wasn't good enough, whereas Obi Martin outgrew Copenhagen and moved to Arsenal. He didn't have to take that step down to take 2 step ups that Hojlund did. So I think at this point in his career, he is definitely way ahead of Hojlund. And as players, I think they're pretty similar. Both of them are really, really strong guys, very fast, very physically gifted, and have been like that for their whole careers. So obviously, huge advantage, especially as a youngster, to be bigger and stronger than your competitors, which is also why he played with bigger kids. So he still was challenged. He's a great striker, similar to Hojlund. My impression is that he has much better technique. He's a better dribbler. He's better with the ball at his feet, where Hojlund is more of a guy who can run deep, who can win headers and strong finisher. But I think Obi Martin is much better technically than Hojlund is.
I mean, you look at how much this player is being spoken about. He reportedly left Arsenal because the pathway to first-team football wasn't that certain. He's already reportedly on quite a decent wage packet at Man United, and he's under a manager like Erik Ten Hag, who has been known for bringing you through. So when you look at the issues that Man United are having with scoring goals, how ready do you think he actually is to potentially be making an impact? Could we be seeing him this season, do you think?
Naturally, that's a huge step, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think he will play a role this season. I mean, how big that role would be, there's so many different factors that influences that naturally. But I think we will get to see him, and I think he will be ready as well. He is a guy who's very, very hungry. I don't think the move to United was about money. I think, as you said, it was about them having the best development plan for him. I mean, he's already famous for scoring those 10 goals in a match against Liverpool, and I think he is hungry to to move further in his career and to do it at a senior level. So yeah, and as I said, he is physically gifted, so starting to play with the seniors is not as much of a challenge for him as it would be for other players who would perhaps be pushed around a little bit. I mean, he is so strong already that he can go up against big defenders and big midfielders without being intimidated.
Is there much talk in Denmark about him? Obviously, he's doing well in the under-18s for Denmark at the moment, under-17s even. Is there much talk of him possibly developing quickly enough to make an international debut? Maybe even before he steps foot out on the pitch for Manchester United. Obviously, Rasmus Hojlund is there now, like you said, for the Danish team. But with injury concerns for him, Denmark looking for goals, is there any talk that he could develop even in Manchester United's academy to get to the Danish first team at some point?
I think the hope is very much that, yes, he will become a national team player at some point. It's not really considered that he will play for the senior team at the moment because, yeah, we have Hojlund and we still haven't seen him play a senior match yet. So I think that's still a little bit out in the future. Hopefully not too far out in the future. Hopefully he gets to play a little bit on the under-21 national team soon and can step up from the under-17s. It's generally a curious case with Obi Martin here because he has followed some similar steps as Christian Eriksen, for example, with never playing in the Danish Superliga. So he's not a very well-known player in Denmark, actually, because nobody has really watched him play. Naturally, we have seen a lot of highlights as well of all of his goals on the youth team, read all the stories here about how he has performed for Arsenal and now Man United and so on. But he's not a guy that a lot of teams or a lot of football fans have a connection with because he simply hasn't really played. He left Denmark at a very, very young age. I think he was 14 when he moved to London with his family because his mom went to study there. So we don't have that close connection with him that we do with some of the other players that we get to see a little bit playing in Denmark before they leave. So it's very, very exciting because he is basically an unknown to Danish football fans as well. And just seeing a guy who comes with this package of technical skills, finishing and the physicality, you can only dream about how far that can go. I mean, I think it's a bit of a similar feeling to what we saw with Bentner when he starting to break through at Arsenal. Is that 15 years ago now? And hopefully Obi Martin is a lot smarter. And I was
going to say we need higher stocks than that, Toke. We need higher.
But actually fulfills the promise. And I think so far, I mean, he has only made good decisions with his career, with his development, and all the stories you hear from the coaches and from the people close to him is that he's very, very serious, that he works hard, that he does the extra work after practice. He stays on his own and put in extra finishing training and all of these things. So I mean, it's basically all the things that Bentner never did. So I think at this stage, it's looking very, very promising.
Well, on to Rasmus Hojlund. I know you spoke about him quite a lot, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about Cheeto again shortly. But with Rasmus, he's had an inconsistent start up to life at Manchester United. Was our top goal scorer last season, though, in all competitions, in a very, very difficult season at United with no help from one Anthony Martial last year. So very much Manchester United's main striker without much support. Is Rasmus Hojlund's ceiling still very high?
I think so. I think last season was always a development season. I was actually a bit surprised by how much trust Ten Hag put in him. I mean, that he kept going with him because I think we have to remember that it's only 2 years ago that he was playing in Austria after being dumped by Copenhagen because they didn't think he was good enough for the first team. So I think he still needs time. He's still a very, very young player. It's easy to forget that when you look at him and you see how big and strong he is and the meteoric rise he had in his career. But I think, there's still a lot of talent there, and he can get a lot better. Also, with all due respect for Man United, my impression is that it's not the most stable performing side at the moment. So at the same time, not the easiest situation for a striker, especially not a striker like him that depends a lot on his teammates setting him up around the box, and he can really go fall down the pitch and create stuff for himself. He needs his teammates, and I think the service he received last season was far from ideal for a striker of his type.
We've picked the perfect week to have you on, really, because we've got Brentford coming to Old Trafford at the weekend. Obviously, a big Danish connection there, not least in the dugout. How is Thomas Frank viewed in his homeland? As somebody who could one day manage a club like Manchester United, we know he's got admirers amongst the board at Old Trafford.
Definitely. I actually had that conversation with my brother just last week about it's time that he could go up. So maybe Man United, maybe one of the other big clubs, but I think he has proven at Brentford that he can definitely take the next step. I think he has done brilliantly at Brentford. I think he was also the perfect match for them. With the philosophy and the mentality at the club fits him very, very well. And but there, I mean, Denmark is just like England, also looking for a new national team coach. So I'm sure there are people in the Football Association here that are also dreaming of him becoming national team coach. And he was under 17 national team coach a long time ago before he got his first senior job. So I think they are trying as well, but I don't see him moving back to the national team now. I think he will take that next step eventually in the Premier League. Going to Man United first might be too big a step. He was coaching Brøndby in Denmark before going to Brentford, one of the two biggest clubs in Denmark, and failed quite miserably there. Ended up leaving the club after the chairman actually criticized him on one of the big fan forums from an anonymous profile. So that was a big mess. But I think he learned a lot from being in a club with a lot more pressure than Brentford. And I think that's also why we can see him now being successful. So he is very, very high regarded. And I mean, seeing a Danish coach in the Premier League is not something we are used to. So there's a lot of pride in how well he's doing for Brentford. And most of their matches are televised and are followed very, very closely here.
Can I just ask you about Christian Eriksen? Obviously, it looks like his time at Manchester United is coming to an end. I just wanted to ask you on his best position, in your opinion, because he plays in the front three for Denmark more regularly than what he would ever do at Manchester United. Are you surprised that he's been playing in that holding role in front of the defence for Manchester United? And are you surprised that he's actually burst onto the scene in that position after Manchester United spent so much time trying to chase a player like Manuel Ugarte through the summer?
Yeah, I think United are not playing Eriksen to his strengths generally, which makes sense because Bruno Fernandes is basically playing Eriksen's best position. I think Eriksen is very versatile because he's so good with the ball and he's such an intelligent player. But I would say he's definitely better moved further up the pitch, like he's playing for Denmark and he was playing for, I think, also Ajax and to a degree Tottenham as well. Because obviously his finishing abilities are very, very good and he has a great eye for his teammates, so he can set up chances and create assists. But he's good enough with the ball to play further down the pitch. On the national team for Denmark at the moment, we are playing with two number 10s, where he is one of them, playing a little bit wide. It's not going the best at the moment, but the Danish national team is also in a bit of a transition period with a temporary manager, and so I don't think we can blame Eriksen too much. But yeah, I think he could definitely benefit from playing further up the pitch and get a little bit closer to goal, because that's definitely where he is the most dangerous, and he's been the main man for Denmark for so many years. Basically carrying the national team on his back, and that has usually been from the number 10 position.
And Toke, just finally on a bit of an injury front, we know there was a few concerns for Rasmus during the international break. What sort of condition is he coming back to Manchester United in? Is he okay? How do you understand his injury situation to be?
I think he is in a slightly better position than he came into the national team camp, because he got a few minutes in his legs. I hope he will actually start the match today. We're playing against Switzerland tonight. And I think that would be good for him, getting maybe not 90 minutes, but at least 60, 70 minutes, because even though he hasn't been fully fit, there's no doubt that he is by far our best striker at the moment. Nobody really comes close to him. So I think it would really benefit both the national team to have him in the lineup, but also just benefit Hojlund short and long term to get these minutes. And return to United a little bit closer to 100% and hopefully able to get his spot in the lineup back again.
Toke, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with that insight, especially on Cheeto. We're really excited to see him as United fans. You know, to get one over on Arsenal, they're trying to hold the player in and lock him into a contract. Of course, on social media, we celebrated that like it was Robin van Persie 2.0. But thank you for giving us insight to him, Rasmus, and of course, Christian Eriksen. Thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure.
Before we wrap up, we will be looking ahead to Manchester United's Premier League return as we face Brentford at Old Trafford on Saturday in another crucial clash for the manager, Erik Ten Hag, because we'll get to the game in a second. Adam, listen, Erik Ten Hag, he's still here. We were thinking, would he not be? That Sebastian Hoeneß has been sounded out, apparently, by INEOS, a few other managers. Who does that look worse on? INEOS for talking about different managers still, or Ten Hag to show that actually the vote of confidence maybe still isn't there?
I think overall as a club, because INEOS are obviously not appealing to many managers with their structure, it would seem. We talked about Tuchel and why he turned us down and why we might have to go back to him because he's the only man available. Hoeneß, we've talked about there, amongst McKenna, amongst others that were spoken to in the summer while Ten Hag was still in his job. No one really convinced as to what INEOS are offering and how they want to operate at Manchester United. And then again, you look at Ten Hag and another manager that INEOS has spoken to behind his back. Not so much behind his back. I mean, to be honest, I don't have a problem with it. It's a ownership model, having a plan B and just making sure they've got a contingency in place. I've got no issue with that. Like United's news always gets spread out across all of the media. It's just what happens with United. But for Ten Hag, we've all known that the writing's been on the wall for a while. Performances you're not going to get away with. Worst ever start to a season last season, followed by the worst ever finish, followed by the worst ever start again this season. You can't argue with the results, I'm afraid. And 14th in the league is why all of these stories are coming out now. Again, people are digging more because they want to know why United haven't pulled the plug on Ten Hag.
Angelina, I mean, we all saw that meeting on last Tuesday and we were all sort of locked in with anticipation for maybe a big decision. And INEOS sort of went, normal day, mate, normal board meeting. We don't need to tell you guys anything. This is just as you were. Were you surprised by that? And do you think that actually that day was probably more hyped up by fans in anticipation for Ten Hag leaving rather than actually what that meeting was?
For me, the biggest thing of that is that it was like a 7-hour meeting. Who needs a 7-hour meeting? Like, you guys are great, but I could not sit in a 7-hour meeting.
But if we run Man United, we might.
I'd lose my mind. Like, I can't. That, to me, why is it 7 hours? And you come out of it with nothing to say. Fair enough, they're saying that this is a regular meeting and we don't...
this was always scheduled in.
We don't come out and say... So maybe it was a little bit overhyped, but for me, I just had to sit there for a minute and think, this is 7 hours, nothing's been announced. What are they doing? Like, surely they speak quite often anyway. You telling me they don't have like a WhatsApp chat or something like this whole 7 hours?
What, just sending voice to Jim, just sending voice notes to try around the club?
That was rubbish, wasn't it? Yeah. That to me was the first bit I had to get over. I'm not surprised. I think it's really tricky with this situation because if they pull the plug, whatever decision they make, I think I've said this before, you know, they're going to look foolish because if they pull the plug now, it's like, well, why did you give him a contract extension? You know, why have you brought in all these players that he wanted? Why didn't you make a decision when you were interviewing people? But I feel like the longer this goes on, the more foolish they're going to look. So even though people will have questions if they pulled the plug now, if they carry on with this, it'll be like, you know, why did you carry it until Christmas? Why did you carry it until January or whatever? However this looks, they know that they're going to look a little bit foolish, but very foolish. But this whole thing with Ten Hag, and we've sat and we've really tried to back him, and I genuinely did think that he was going to go in the international break. On paper, those 2 draws actually look quite good. What we saw on the pitch wasn't great, but on paper, they do look okay. But for me, it's just more this whole, you know, he comes out and he's talking about, oh, we've got 4 clean sheets. If he's just grasping at straws, like if that's the main thing that Man United are looking, oh, we've got 4 clean sheets, great. Yeah, we're still 5 points off relegation. Like that isn't good enough. So I wasn't surprised because of those 2 draws. And I think you look at the fixtures that we've got, you know, Brentford, Fenerbahce, we're playing Leicester twice, we've got West Ham. It'll be very interesting to see how those games go. But I think if he has another bad spell, that's a great way for them to then pull the plug.
I mean, Crooked, do you think INEOS are delaying the inevitable? Is this bringing more negativity to the club as it is? Or do you think actually it kind of is strong leadership to basically not listen to the fans, stick with what they thought would be a decent plan, and give him another run of, 7 games in about 3 weeks up until the next international break?
Well, we've become a bit of a banter club, haven't we? And
Absolutely.
Every other big club in the Premier League, if you're a fan of one of those teams, they're rejoicing in the fact that Ten Hag is still in situ because they don't think he's a threat. And I've got to say, on what we've seen so far this season, they might be right. Having said that, when you get fans from clubs like Tottenham mocking the fact that he won the FA Cup last season, but literally, when was the last time you won anything meaningful? So let's not take away those achievements. Is it strong leadership from INEOS? Potentially. I think it's right that they're trying seemingly to find the perfect candidate before pulling the trigger, because it's very easy to fire a manager.
Sacking with no plan will be fuming.
It's very difficult to find a suitable replacement. My hunch is still that if they do have to pull the trigger between now and the November break, then Ruud van Nistelrooy would probably become interim manager for the foreseeable future. But as we've spoken about on this programme before, it's a massive step up when you look at what he's done, what little he's done in his managerial career to date, to take on a club that is the size and stature of Manchester United. Looks like Thomas Tuchel, as we sit here now, is the main contender to become the New England manager, so maybe his name will be taken off the table. The best news for me that's come out in the last week or so is that Gareth Southgate doesn't want a job for a year.
himself out.
Hallelujah for that. But it does leave a dearth of obvious candidates.
Do you think, just really quickly on the Thomas Tuchel situation, and so, apparently, like say, reporting that England are, in talks with him for the England job, do you think that could entice INEOS into something where you said if they do want him, they might have to abandon the plans they did have because he might go to England? Or do you think that actually they would step away from that anyway and go in a different direction?
I think they'd probably step away because, as I understand it, it's not a unanimous verdict that Tuchel is the man they want. They held talks in the summer. They couldn't agree terms then. Again, we have to rewrite the narrative a little bit in the summer. It wasn't really that INEOS decided Ten Hag was the best man for the job. It was that for one reason or another, they couldn't find a potential replacement. I'm told that Roberto De Zerbi even turned his nose up at the job and then obviously went to Marseille. So it's a problem in terms of what calibre of manager they can actually get through the door at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, Adam, just before we move on to the actual Brentford game, in terms of the manager that Man United should be looking at, do you think it should be experienced? Do you think it should be someone who's been there and done it at top clubs before, so wait until that's available? Or are you quite happy to go with inexperience, not really knowing what that brings, and there's enough evidence of other clubs going in that direction that why not us?
It's important what Alex said there in terms of they went to Tuchel in the summer and they couldn't agree then. So I don't want INEOS now to all of a sudden, we desperately need a man. We're going to change our plan, please come. They need to stick to their plan. Obviously, I don't want to say the word process. I hate it because I slack it up and it comes out of Ten Hag's
But you're going to say it anyway.
It's there, isn't it? They are obviously moving big pieces into place for how they want to run Manchester United. They have to stick to their guns. They'll have a manager that when you can look at all of the names mentioned, they're all of the younger super coach variety, I feel, that are going to work within a structure. And I feel like the experienced one, where that works, and you can deal with high-profile players. Who is high-profile at Manchester United right now? We're moving forward. The players that have been brought in by INEOS, I think, are all of a younger generation that's going to work with a coach that works under their structure. So I don't actually, the more I think about it, I don't actually see it being the experienced manager anymore at Manchester United. I think they want to go in a different direction. And everything that they've done is pointing in that way for me.
And just looking forward now to the game. Look, we got a draw last time out against Villa. Mm-hmm. We probably all thought we'd lose that game.
Yeah.
Do we agree with that? Right. The draw eased pressure, definitely, because I think if we would have got absolutely destroyed in that, he would have been gone.
We have Bayern to thank.
For knackering them out on the Wednesday night, for sure. Is anything other than a win against Brentford on Saturday's 3 p.m. unacceptable? Like, you just must win. There's no two ways about this.
The thing is, it's like you want a win with every game. Of course, you want 3 points. I think that it's not even like if it is anything less than a win acceptable for Erik Ten Hag. He has to have a win. I think the thing is, this Brentford game, it's not an easy game for Manchester United whatsoever. I agree with Crookie. I'm quite nervous about it. I think taking points aside, I think the most important thing is that we are watching a game of football where we are confident in what we are seeing. We see players working the way that we want them to work. I know that we've got a lot of injuries, but I think it's just more about seeing something on the pitch that we can actually believe in. That, for me, is as bad as it sounds, because we need points because of our position in the table. I can't even think about that. It's about just seeing something that I can believe in on the pitch.
Rookie Brian Mbeumo scored 6 goals himself, personally, which is one more than our whole team scored this season. What are you expecting from us with injuries there? We're talking about Johnny Evans potentially having to play, Lindelof back in, etc. Harry Maguire's out. We've got injuries. What are you expecting from our backline in terms of coping with him?
Well, it's going to be patched up again, isn't it? And I think job number one is get through the first couple of minutes without conceding. Because Brentford have made a habit of scoring straight from kick-off. They're not quite the same beast away from home. They are at home, I would say that, even going back to last season. So this is a game that United have to be winning, but I wouldn't underestimate Brentford. They've got some top players, not least Mbeumo, but defensively, I think they're gettable. I'm still not convinced by Collins. I think he's been
shaky since he's got there.
A big money flop so far. He'll probably come and produce a man of the match performance now. But
header from a corner.
Yeah, exactly. You'd imagine that if Maguire's not fit, De Ligt will come back in. I mean, you talk about Johnny Evans playing left back. Martinez played there, didn't he, in the Community Shield, which is another possibility.
Didn't look the best, did he? Didn't look the best there.
I'd probably still go for him
Better
ahead
than
of Johnny Evans.
But don't you think Eric would maybe look at Dalot left back and Lindelof in at right back?
Dallow's been appalling this season.
He's not going to take him out. So he's the one who plays the most.
But actually, I'd like to see him play as a right back because he's been all over the place.
He's got to play with the options we've got, Adam, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Dallot's had a poor season. It's Ten Hag again. He's playing him inverted in a position that he doesn't normally play. So he's double barrelling him, basically. He's going left back where it's not his natural, and he's trying to play him inverted. People said he went back to Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire to save his job against Aston Villa. No, he didn't. He just changed his shape and didn't go inverted. He stayed flat back 4. If you'd have Martinez and De Ligt there, they probably would have just done as good a job as what Evans and Maguire did. It was desperation, and it was appalling from Manchester United, in my opinion. But that's me being a match-going fan. I'm just sick of what I'm watching. Against Brentford, you have to win. Otherwise, sling your hooks. It's that simple right now. We're sick to death of trying to pick little bits out. I understand what Angelina's saying now. We need to look at something. You know what? I said this the other day to someone. I said, if I was a Spurs fan right now, I'd have more belief. I know they're in 10th, but I can see what they're doing on the pitch. And results may go up. They may have the meltdowns in it, but we're playing garbage and having meltdowns on top of that. There's no plan. I feel like you're going into the defensive. I'd probably play Martinez on the left.
I agree.
Why doesn't he try a back 3? Why doesn't he just try something new?
And it's that thing of, like, if we were to discuss, do you think Ten Hag will try a back 3 against Brentford? I'm pretty sure we'll be like, he won't. Like, he's just so stuck. Like, the 4-4-2 and 4-2-3-1 is pretty much all we have.
There is an interesting story going about the Agate situation at the moment, about him now intensifying his integration into Manchester United. I just hope he doesn't get that Uruguay sort of vibe and start trying to play him at the back as well. Because that's where he played.
For Uruguay, didn't he?
But Martinez plays in the 3 for Argentina.
Yeah.
Look at how they're playing and playing well for the international team. Maybe like what our colleague from Denmark was saying earlier on, when he was talking about not playing Christian Eriksen's best. I don't think Ten Hag does that. I don't think he utilises the attributes of our players. He doesn't play them where they flourish on the pitch.
But it shows how far our stock has fallen. That you look at the fixture list coming off this international break. 5 of the 6 games we've got coming up now are against teams in the bottom half of the table, which Brentford are at this moment in time. Chelsea, the only top half team we've got to play in the immediate future. Fenerbahce away should be a tap-in because they're no great shakes. And they're not, are they? We're going into every game petrified.
It's losable, mate. And that's just the thing. You look at this next 7 games, and INEOS is thinking probably is, right, OK, on paper, these fixtures look more favourable. In this bad batch where we've, you face Brighton away, that's tough. Spurs, shouldn't have been that easy, but, tough game. Liverpool, away to Porto. But it's... Villa, tough away day. So they're sort of like they're giving him leeway there. There will be nowhere to hide.
They've given him enough rope.
And what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see, personally, another mixed bag is enough to just carry on. Because essentially what this was in this was, a draw against Porto, draw against Villa, beat Barnsley, beat
Southampton.
drew against FC. Mixed bag. I don't want to see any mixed bag, and we go, that's good enough.
This is what we're saying. This is why I was so annoyed with everyone's reaction to Villa. It was backs against the wall and just defend to keep the man's job. That's not sustainable. You can't go out at Old Trafford and do that against Brentford. No. The crowd expects you to go out and win the game, and that's where United have problems. That's where teams pick us off. Thomas Frank is a very simple coach. He simplifies everything. And Manchester United win games for opposition. We play into their hands. We're too easy to play. You look at going back, obviously, a few weeks, what Slot said. I was sat there for 2 minutes going, oh, my God, he's just dissected everything that we are bad at in 2 minutes there in front of national TV. I was like, are we that easy? And you look at the games, everybody finds chances against United.
And I've been told, actually, by senior figures at other Premier League clubs that managers don't fear going into battle with Eriksen.
And we can see it, and neither do the players probably, Ange, right?
No, exactly. And, you look at this Brentford game, and it's going to be tough, a very physical game. You know, you look at the last time that they were out against Wolves, their entire defence and midfield were over 6 foot. The defence is about 6'4". That is going to be a tough game. And I just think when you look at this is one of the best pressing teams in the Premier League, you could argue. And I think that you need your best passing defenders. So I know that there's talk about, Lisandro Martinez is going to be playing the early hours of Wednesday morning. He's then going to have to travel back. It's not like he's going to be in economy. I'm sure he'll be fine. I think that you need to have Lisandro Martinez in that team. I personally would put him at left back just because I know he was a little bit shaky, but I trust him more than Johnny Evans. I think if you have to play Johnny Evans, maybe you have him with De Ligt so he's got a little bit of support there.
Not much pace there, is there?
But not a lot of pace at all.
But do we need to start, just quickly on Johnny Evans, do we need to start just putting respect on his name and actually...
I've got respect for Evans.
Less about his age or concerns. He's actually our most consistent defender, and actually, ability-wise, in 2024, it shouldn't be this, but in 2024, when you look at our centre-backs, he's the one you go, he'll be all right, give me a 7. Give me a 6 or a 7, easy.
Yeah, I mean, I've got tons of time for Johnny Evans, and I know there was a lot of talk. I think Dimitar Berbatov was speaking about how it's so embarrassing that he was man of the match with his age and stuff, and I completely get people's arguments, but I've got mad respect for him. I've got a lot of time for him, but the bottom line is, he is 36, so he's not going to be as quick, and that's just the bottom line. He doesn't have the pace, which is why I would probably put Lisandro Martinez there. But that's not disrespecting anything that he's done. It's just the fact that his legs aren't.
But at centre-half, with the right organisation, as we've seen...
With that support from
Ollie Watkins didn't get past. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, he did. But it's like we said there, you put any of our defenders into a Ten Hag system that don't play to attributes. We could be talking like Johnny Evans, like we are about Matthias de Ligt. It's just how he plays the team, how he sets them up. And it suited Johnny Evans against Aston Villa. Angelina said, Bayern Munich against Villa, Nakadema. Watkins didn't look like half the player when he was coming up against us. He was being mauled by our
Neither did John Duran.
We actually looked all right defensively, but that's just the way that he set it up. It's not sustainable. And if Johnny Evans was playing week in, week out, he probably would be suffering like every other defender in this team. It's the system, it's not the individuals doing better than anyone else in particular for me.
Kobbie Mainoo's out. What should happen in midfield? And will we see sort of how important Kobbie is? But actually, he's been having a tough time anyway, as every central midfielder we've had this season.
Interesting to see how Bruno Fernandes plays in this game as well. He's come under a lot of criticism at midfield right now. He'll afford someone going wandering like Bruno Fernandes has recently. And we've all been talking about him. Kobbie Mainoo, I think, has been a victim of it. Isolated constantly. We've had the talk come out of The Athletic about Casemiro having words about how Ten Hag has hung him out to dry in his system and isolating him as well. That's 2 very, very good midfielders there that are looking very average at the moment under Ten Hag's game. And that's what I think is the bigger concern. We're not worried about the players. We just said it a minute ago, it could be any one of these players and another manager might get more out of them. It's how he sets it up. It's how he sort of anticipates what Brentford are going to do as well. Sadly, we should be putting our game planning on them, but I don't think he will. I think he'll look at what Brentford are going to do and try and match up in some way and limit the issues, because I feel like Kobbie Mainoo has been a big victim of how we've played this season. And he's getting a little bit of stick now already. And it's not fair. He's only just broke through into the Manchester United's first team. He didn't even play a full season last season. Already you're finding fans in the stands where I am criticising him. He's not physical enough, he's not quick enough. This is what happens. The focus goes on to the players when really there should be someone in that dugout who can control and in-game management, change things around when needed, which we just haven't got. But injured, I don't know. We could have had Bruno out, but he's had his suspension over 10.
Yeah, it would have been 3 games without him.
So
to
it would have been really interesting
Yeah.
what happened in that midfield. But a guard, say, like Angelina said, with Martinez, he plays even later. So will he play?
I mean,
We are
and I
struggling.
don't think he will, considering, like you said, the time.
Yeah.
And Ten Hag hasn't even fancied him, really.
Exactly.
Crookie, Marcus Rashford's been, putting up videos, training alone. Angelina, I know, the coach that he's been training with, and he does a lot of good work with a lot of players, and he's looking really sharp in these training videos. Should he have been in the England squad, and do you back him to come back after this international break, training harder again with a bang, basically?
I hope so. In terms of the England squad, probably not. I think if you're asking, are we seeing the best of Marcus Rashford in terms of getting back in that international setup, the answer's still no. There are shoots of recovery. But just to pick up on the point that Adam was making, and Marcus is a prime example, really, the job of the manager is to instill confidence and belief in his players. There are so many players in this team who look totally drained of any confidence in their own ability because of the decisions that Erik Ten Hag has made. Now, yes, you can laud him for sticking with Marcus when he wasn't scoring goals, but all of a sudden he starts scoring goals. He finds himself on the bench. You saw his reaction when he was taken off against Porto at half-time, which was just a bizarre decision. So I think Adam's dead right. Is Erik Ten Hag at the moment getting the best out of his players? Is he coaching the best out of these players? And the answer is no. So credit to Marcus. He's trying to do it on his own. He's putting the effort in clearly during the international break, and hopefully that translates on the pitch of the weekend because we need him. Defensively, we're not as big a car crash as we have been historically. In fact, we kept a few clean sheets this season. Going forward is the problem. Where are the goals coming from? If Brentford score one of their early goals, I think it could get ugly quite quickly.
Yeah, because us, putting more than 2 on the board or 2 on the board is usually a struggle. Okay, let's lock in the predictions. Adam, we'll start with you and go down the desk. Manchester United taking on Brentford. Surely we win, Adam.
1-1, sadly. Not enough. I just, like you said, scoring 2 goals. If Brentford have an off day, but I just look at the international players, the injury concerns, the confidence. I think we'll hold our own and scrape a draw out of it.
Scrape a draw. Angelina?
It really pains me to go with a loss, so I'm not going to. I probably would agree with you, Adam. I think a 1-1 draw. That's the way that I see this going.
Crookie?
I was going to say 1-1, but I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic, just because.
I'm going to say 2-2
because of Brentford's defensive issues and the fact I think they're a better team at home than away. I'm going to go for a nervy 2-1 United victory.
I'm with you, Crookie. I maybe stupidly we're saying this, but I just think they'll get that done. It won't be pretty. It won't be easy. It won't be a walk in the park. But I just got a feeling that, 2-1. We've got the Bozo gene. We will concede. I do think that. But I'm going to go with a 2-1 win, yeah? So two of us think we're going to win, 2 of us think we're going to draw.
Going unbeaten.
Unbeaten, there you go. Not going to lose. That's all we've got time for in this week's Inside. There was a huge thank you to Alex Crook, Angelina Kelly and Adam making his debut on the show. We'll see you next week after Ten Hag's side return to winning ways against Brentford. Come on, United, let's do this, please.